Health Nuts, episode 20.
You're listening to Health Nuts with Dr. Chris Carr. Making lifestyle changes is hard for many people, and not knowing what to do or how to do it makes the task all the more daunting. Here at Health Nuts, we focus on helping you live a fuller life by discussing everyday health issues and exploring breakthrough solutions on how to overcome them. And now, here's your host, Dr. Chris Carr.
Welcome back to another episode of Health Nuts. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Carr, and today I've got an awesome guest for all you, and that is Michele Reger. She is a registered dietitian nutritionist, RDN for short, with a Master of Science degree in hotel, restaurant, and institutional management from the Pennsylvania State University. She's a nutrition expert credentialed by the Commission on Dietetic Registration with advanced practice certification in clinical nutrition with a background in retail nutrition, acute and long-term care, and research. Michele owns her own business and leads a team of registered dietitians that provides contracted services for individualized nutrition counseling, grocery store tours, cooking classes, group presentations, and nutrition-related project consulting. She has a passion for food and nutrition that extends well beyond her work, cooking, eating, and seeking out new food experiences wherever she goes. Today's going to be a great topic, and it's one that hasn't been on the show before. That's on plant-based nutrition, how we can treat that as treating plant-based nutrition as medicine. So Michele, welcome to Health Nuts. Great to have you on. Looking forward to having you. Would love to know a little bit more about yourself besides that formal intro of you.
Well, I can tell you that I love food. I'm a food lover. So, really just all things food and nutrition. Very passionate about teaching others about food and nutrition in general. And just as a side note, I also love to travel and am a recent transplant to the Pittsburgh area. So just in the last couple of years. So we're still finding our way around and getting to know the city.
Do you cross bridges yet?
I do. I do.
Well, you're doing better than the others.
We lived in a very rural area before this, and so it was not in our nature to stay anywhere within that little bubble.
Well, you've already got a leg up on 90% of the folks here because we don't travel.
So we've been discovering.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. One is you have a ton of knowledge. You've been in the field for a long period of time. What got you into this form of a career choice?
So like I said, I always really loved food, and it started when I was young, just with cooking and baking and trying to just try new things. And I thought early on that I might want to be a chef. And luckily, one of my career advisors counseled me out of that, just related to the hours and things that you might have to work. And so, they introduced me to hey, there's this major where you could actually talk to people about nutrition. And I just kind of waded into it. And I have to tell you, I absolutely love what I do.
Well, it's great changing lives, keeping those healthy, and being on a mission to keep those folks on health and treating food as medicine, because at the end of the day, it's amazing what a lot of folks can do if they get inflammation out of their body, take control of their health, lose weight, and it's just crazy how the body responds to it. So I'm looking forward to hearing your expertise in this. Before we get to that, affirmation or quote, I always love to start with that. What would you say?
One of the quotes that I really like is by Conrad Hall, and he's a cinematographer. And he said, you're always a student, never a master. You have to keep moving forward. And so I've really used that as a mantra, remembering that you can always learn from the situation you're in, learn from folks, even if you might be the senior person, there's always something new there. Then, just keeping that forward progress. So always making changes for the better.
Yeah, I love that. Don't get too high up on your pedestal, because you can get knocked down very quickly. Love it. We're going to hit on plant-based nutrition today. So this topic, why is it special to you?
So plant-based nutrition is really special to me. It's come on my radar really in the last several years. Coming from a background of more traditional nutrition, I didn't feel like I really had the tools to help people in the way that I really wanted to. And plant-based nutrition is so amazing because we're looking at really the key core components of the nutrients in food that can help us to prevent or reverse disease. So it really is, like you said, treating food as medicine, and looking at that in a way that maybe, hey, we don't have to be on all these medications necessarily. And if we're eating right and treating our bodies right, then maybe we can prevent ourselves from heading down that road toward those common diseases, the common causes of death in the United States.
So someone who, because a lot of the folks out there, it'd be a hard switch for them to go from maybe the meat-based nutrition, using that as a primary source of protein, to doing a 180 and doing a plant-based nutrition. What are some benefits for someone who goes into a plant-based nutrition protocol?
Yeah, so clients that I've worked with that are going into plant-based nutrition, and I will say, there is a big stigma for a lot of folks. They think, gee, where will I get my protein? How will I stay full? There are a lot of common things that people have in their minds that they see as barriers. And really, it's just about adding in more fruits and vegetables and whole grains into your meal plan. So even if you're not able to go 100% on the other end of the spectrum where you're entirely plant-based, just moving down the line toward getting more fruits and vegetables and whole grains and less in the way of animal proteins is going to be beneficial. So I always like to start with that first of all. Then also really, it is a challenge, but I like to tell people you just wade in. So if you're a person that is into the meat and the cheese and the dairy, and you've got it in every meal, you've got multiple things in every meal, then maybe you just start with one day a week where you're eating something that's entirely plant-based, like a meatless Monday, for example. Or maybe you do one meal a day. So there are ways that you can kind of force yourself into it slowly without going cold turkey, and really leaving yourself wondering, what do I eat? What do I do?
Yeah, and I know we're gonna dive into that as well, because a lot of folks may not even know where to start with it. So someone you're counseling, say for a breakfast alternative to start it off, what do you recommend to your clients to start off with a plant-based breakfast?
Well, I really like oatmeal as a plant-based breakfast because there are a lot of things that you can do to make it quick and easy and convenient, a lot of good add-ins. So oatmeal in itself is a whole grain, nice and healthy. But then, really you can do things like overnight oats so that maybe you're doing your prep ahead and you don't have to take the time to make the oatmeal in the morning. Or you can add in lots of things like berries and nuts, chia seeds, peanut butter. There are lots of things that you can do to really jazz up that oatmeal to keep it interesting and to also give you a nutritional boost.
I love that recipe that you shared with the overnight oats. One, you can put it in mason jars, and you can do 3 or 4 of those for the week. And a lot of reasons why folks skip nutrition is they're either getting the kids ready for school, they're running out of time, and they put themselves last, and then they end up not eating anything until lunch, which if they're following an intermittent fasting protocol, which is fine, but a lot of folks are just eating, and then they're eating, and they're stress eating, then they overeat because they're starving. Those overnight oats, how do you recommend preparing those?
So they're super easy. Usually you've got a recipe of 1-to-1. So you've got 1 cup of oats, for example, with 1 cup of your favorite non-dairy milk. So you can do soy milk, you can do almond milk, oat milk. And then really you mix those 2 things together. You add in anything else that you'd like. So banana slices, peanut butter, like I said, chia seeds, strawberries, blueberries, mango. You can really do anything that you'd like there. You just mix it all right in, put it in the mason jars, seal them up, and stick them in the fridge overnight so they're ready to go. So it's super easy. You can make it in 5 minutes or less, and it'll be a meal for you for a couple of days.
What have you found? Because a lot of folks, what they'll actually start off with will be some form of processed cereal, maybe, and it'll be a 2% or skim milk or some version of that, or maybe even some form of cheese. What do you find the overall rotting issue with that type of dairy?
Yeah, so I mean, really with the dairy, the issue is that people are getting in a lot of the fats that might not necessarily be beneficial for them in terms of heart health. And then also, there is research out there now that shows that maybe some of the hormones that we're getting in the dairy milk might not be beneficial for us. And so if people were starting out with the more processed cereals, and, obviously the issue with those cereals might be that there are sugars added into them that really aren't as healthy for you. Or if they're starting out with lots of milk, cheese, eggs, things of that nature, I would say just figure out like one way that you could tweak it and make it a little better. So maybe it's choosing a cereal that is a little more a little less processed, has a little more fiber in it, or, switching out your milk for one of those non-dairy milk alternatives. So again, that stepwise process of really, if you can't think of leaving your current breakfast regimen right now, maybe it's just making that small change in order to help incorporate some of those healthier options.
Yeah, I love it. So then when you're counseling your clients, when you're getting them to make this switch, which I know one of the reasons why you do it is get the inflammation out of the body. Mm-hmm. What have you found? What's the primary issue with inflammation? Why is it such a disaster to the human body?
Yeah, I mean, so the inflammation is a huge deal because it really, it's the trigger for a lot of disease states. So, we have issues with, for example, heart disease. We know that it isn't even necessarily some of the things that we're eating, but if we have inflammation, that really ramps up our possibility for our risk for getting, having a heart attack, having a stroke, those types of things. And overall, inflammation in our body means that we probably have some destructive processes happening. And our goal is really to decrease those destructive processes from happening so that we have that longevity, that chance for a longer life and a better quality of life while we're living. So, whether inflammation might mean things like joint pain, for example, or issues with exacerbating diabetes. We really want to do anything we can to have those beneficial nutrients, the antioxidants, the vitamins and minerals and other good beneficial plant chemicals that are going to help us to decrease that inflammation that's happening in our body.
Yeah, I love that. One of the reasons, which I'm also on board with where you're going with this, is all the disease processes that we can link back to an inflammatory process. And you hit on arthritis, but then if we look into diabetes, can be an inflammatory issue. And not even just type 1 or type 2, now, which I think will come out as the years go on with the type 3 diabetes because of all of the mental issues that are taking place with dementia, Parkinson's, and there's research that's coming out with it being an inflammatory issue. It's been going on for years, that's developed and resonated within the brain itself. So you name it, you can scale a lot of things back to these inflammatory processes, cancers, etc. So I love what you're doing with that. Somebody now who's, say they've been diagnosed with one of those conditions and they want to make that 180 because now they unfortunately have that diagnosis. So somebody who's ready to dive in head first, what would you tell them? What changes would you have them do?
Mm-hmm. So, a couple of changes that they could make right off. It's not just about the plant-based nutrition, but we're talking about more of those whole foods, things that are less processed. And so, one of the easiest things for a lot of folks is if you're consuming those sugary beverages on a regular basis. So if you've got the soda, the iced tea, those types of things that we're consuming, that's just a whole lot of sugar. Just by cutting back on that, you can really decrease your risk for, again, continuing down that path of diabetes or some of those other things. So I think that that's one of the easiest things that people can do, just switching out for a flavored water in general, hot tea. There are lots of other unsweetened beverages that we can use instead.
Yeah, there is so much in the sugary beverages. I see it all the time when I'm doing nutrition consultations with patients, and I'm working with them, and I'll have them do their typically do 5 to 7 days of what they're eating and drinking. And a lot of folks that they'll think that the whether it's a iced tea or some type of product like that they're actually it's water, and it's the same as water. And when you take in all that sugar, I believe the FDA, they're at 40 grams a day is what they're saying to take in, and just one of those drinks can be you're done for the day.
Absolutely. And I think lots of people don't really compute in their mind that the amount of sugar that's actually in there. So if you take a regular can of soda, for example, you can have, say, 8 teaspoons of sugar just in that can of soda. So it's a lot that people might be taking in that they don't realize.
What other
and it's making a difference in our bodies.
What other products do you think outside, so the sugary drinks, big time, what other products that are loaded in sugar you're trying to get patients off of?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we have this this need for sweets in the standard American diet as well. So there are cakes and cookies and pies and things that we're potentially consuming on a regular basis that we could be replacing with healthier options like fruit, or even some of the more traditional desserts that really just have a lower sugar content in them. And then I would also say there are lots of ways that sugars are hidden in our foods that we don't even really necessarily realize. So something like, more than 70% of the products on a grocery store shelf have sugar added into them. So things like spaghetti sauces, for example, right. You might be using one that has sugar in it, and just by switching to another product that doesn't have that added sugar, you can really be cutting back on the amount of sugar that you're taking in during the day.
And that's a huge one. Yeah, spaghetti sauces, it's known to be hidden in there. And there's always two keys that I share when it comes about how somebody would recognize if it had sugar in it. And one being if it ends in the letters OSE, that's one of the staples. When they're doing label reading, if it ends in the letters OSE, that's going to be a sugar or a fake form of sugar that you want to stay away from. And then the other one I always like to share is if you throw something in your mouth and you let it sit there and it turns to mush, like a French fry or bread, anything that will turn the mush in your mouth, we know can be sugar as well. And I love that. Spaghetti sauce, I talk about that all the time. If you look at the labels, it's crazy. There might be 2 or 3 different types of sugar that are in there. And that's usually one of the ones I talk about as well.
And I think sometimes even on the products, like you might not be able to find one that doesn't have sugar added, depending on what the product you're looking at. But even if you can find something that has sugar a little further down in the ingredient list, so if something has, water, tomatoes, sugar versus water, sugar, tomatoes, you want to choose that first one, because the further down that sugar is on the list, the less amount of sugar there is on the ingredient label. So you really want to do all you can to keep that sugar down.
That's a huge share. I think a lot of folks who are laypersons, when they're reading the ingredient list, may not realize that it's not equal distributions of everything on the list. The farther down it is, that's great. It's a good point. But the farther down it is, the less amount of it is in there. So if it's towards the end, it's in there, but it's in a minuscule amount compared to if it's one of the top 3 ingredients. So now we have the person. So now we have the typical male, the steak and eggs. He's got to have his protein with every meal, and he's listening to this, and they're saying these guys there's no way. So we have that person out there. What do we tell? And for their dinner options, usually they're working, they're doing the 8 to 4 to 9 to 5, and they come home from work and they are hungry. What are you telling them to eat?
I totally get that, and I challenge them to try to consume some meals that are really high in fiber, heavy on, say, maybe beans, the vegetables, your lentils. There is some research out there that shows that when people were consuming regular hamburgers, versus vegetarian bean burgers, they actually stayed fuller for longer on the bean burgers. So there is that perception out there. But, you know, if people really try it for themselves, then there are ways that you can really incorporate those non-meat foods, you know, combine them together to make sure that you're feeling full for a longer period of time. So it is definitely not necessary, but yeah, it's definitely something that people think they need. You know, they need to have that protein in order to stay full after their meals.
Yeah, I think might be from the way that a lot of folks were raised. They came in and on their dinner plate was a big portion of protein, a smaller vegetable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of might be a creature of habit just from the
Absolutely.
years they grow up. It's great. So 3 things that make you a health nut. What are 3 things that you do specifically from your day to day that turn you into a health nut?
Yeah. So I'm a stickler for breakfast, is one thing. You know, and I think there's a lot of good research now coming out that shows that really eating a little earlier in the day is better for us in terms of how our body handles it with the hormones and our circadian rhythms. So if people are trying to lose weight or maintain a healthy weight, breakfast is very important. I also think, you know, drinking water is very important. So I'm always getting on people about making sure that they're staying well hydrated. And then really, I think, you know, just being passionate about letting people know that there is a way that they can work those healthy foods into their lifestyle. So, you know, no matter whether you're a professional athlete, whether you sit at a desk all day, whether you are, you know, someone that is out and about working construction, you know, any type of person can really work this into their lifestyle successfully. And sometimes it takes a little work with a registered dietitian, or, you know, finding that other support that you can really get those tools that you need in order to work that in. But it is definitely doable for everyone.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then when you talk about hydration, one of the reasons why folks might really think that they're so darn hungry is that they're actually dehydrated. If they're able to take in a solid 12 to 16 ounces of water before their meal, they'd be full a lot faster. And I completely agree with the hydration issue that a lot of folks are just dehydrated. They don't drink anywhere close to enough fluids throughout the day. So now we go back.
And definitely. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And definitely drinking enough water can help you stay fuller for longer. So in addition to those higher fiber foods, it's really important.
If you're able to go back 10, 15 years now, and you're able to talk to Michele in the past, what would you say to yourself moving forward?
Yeah, so I really think that I would say that relationships are so important. And so I think, you know, that goes for in your working life, you know, that forming those networking relationships are important. And then also in your personal life, I think, you know, the more you can surround yourself with folks that are going to be in your corner and be supportive of you, you know, whether it's for what you're pursuing professionally or what your health goals are, it's really so important to have those relationships.
Well, I'm in the same boat as you are. You have these relationships you start off with at a young age, and nothing beats having these close relationships. Everyone in the same niche, everyone on the same mission as you. And that's for things you really take action. You can really make a lot of progress with. That's a great share. Best advice you ever got?
Absolutely. Best advice I ever got. So let me see. I actually wrote this one down because I had to think about it for a little while. The best advice I ever got was definitely that 85% of the things that you worry about never come into fruition. So, you know, just thinking about like all the things that we go through the day, you know, what about this? What about this? You know, if we realize that the majority of the things that we worry about never happen, or that whenever they do happen, they're definitely manageable for us. They're not catastrophic. It helps us to decrease our stress levels, and that also, you know, plays into better health as well.
Yeah, I think that is so important. And you can even tie that back to the inflammatory issues. Somebody who's constantly stressed, they have their adrenals that are firing all day and they're under stress constantly, and it can cause inflammatory issues within the body. So that is a great share. And so many people that applies to them, that they focus on the negative, and they might be having 20 great interactions throughout the day, and they have one bad interaction. And instead of focusing on the 20 great ones they had, it's that one bad one, and they'll lose sleep over it.
Yep, absolutely. And with weight loss, or with a lot of health changes in general, like getting inside your head and having that negativity and worrying about all the things that could be happening, it's not productive for, again, that forward progress, or making sure that you're really moving forward and not staying in the mire where you might be.
What's a resource that you're passing your clients on to, or something? Is there a podcast, or is there a book that you're telling everybody to read, or something you're reading currently that's you could pass it on?
Yeah, so I really just point my clients to a lot of the plant-based resources out there. So whether that might be, for example, the Forks Over Knives website, they've got a lot of great recipes and a lot of information in terms of articles that really helps to combat some of those questions that we talked about earlier. Well, how do I stay full? What do I do? So I really like that website for that reason. And then I always find that people are looking for things that they can eat. So, they might not know how to prepare lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, how to prepare lots of different whole grains. And so any websites that I can point them to, and there are a lot out there, you can just Google plant-based recipes, to help give them those tools to know what to prepare from day to day is going to be very helpful.
If we have someone now, they're trying to, now you've touched them, they're trying to find you, they need, what they need is they need a plant-based nutrition, but they don't know where to turn to. Somebody who's looking for you, how do they find you?
So we are on the web at www.betterrdn.com. And if someone happens to not be in the greater Pittsburgh area and they're looking for someone in their own area that can help them, eatright.org is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics website. And at the very top right corner of that website, you can click on Find an Expert, and it will help you to find a dietitian in your area that can really help you out with figuring out plant-based nutrition in general, and then also, again, those things that work for you and will fit into your lifestyle to be sustainable.
So for those of you that are listening, that betterrdn.com, it will be in the comments section on our description of this podcast. It'll also be, if you're on Facebook, you're listening on Facebook, it'll be on the comments section in the paragraph below. Michelle's got a ton of experience. She was one of the conglomerates with the Whole Foods in the area, and they're very, very stingy on who they work with. So when I saw that she was working with them, I knew the experience was there. So she has been doing this for a lot of years. If you're looking for answers for plant-based nutrition, not only locally, but even if you have questions outside of her, use her as a resource. Give her a like or a follow on social media. And Michele, you said a ton. Thank you so much for sharing your message and giving back today.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate it.
For those of you who are listening and you're seeing this in your downloads, you'll see our next episode getting released next week. It's been awesome connecting with you through this medium. Have a great week and a blessed one. I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.
So, you've heard from the experts yourself this episode and have gotten some golden nuggets on health. There is so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to pghcw.com. Again, that's pghcw.com, and sign up for our newsletter where you'll receive free info on how to get and stay healthy. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Health Nuts with Dr. Chris Carr. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and please leave a review.